Well, I thought I'd do some removing of some stuff here. Get a little bit more stuff done to the removal of the engine. That heater cord line don't want to come off. There we go. That looks like it's still in usable shape. I probably won't replace them. Heater cord lines are one of those things that definitely could blow and make your day go pretty bad if they blow on a place where you can get parts store, or you don't have a way of looping it or something. So it's always a good idea to take a look and make sure they're not totally rotted out or junk. So this is my boost line. I guess so I don't kink it or break it, I'll stick him back down and through that hole there, back under the dash. So I don't want to have to replace that. Push him back through the dash hole here. And this wire here is my heater. Technically, I could just shove through the hole there. It's my oil line. And just try to get all this stuff out of my way. Kind of want the engine bay as clean as possible for when we're doing other work here. And I don't want to damage anything. This computer box right here is the drive-by wire. Stick that there for a minute. All that stuff is a fan motor. This black wire right here is actually the wire from the ignition to the computer and everything. So probably just replace these spark plug wires because I've had them on and off quite a few times, putting spark plugs in this motor, and you can see they're not in particular good shape. Battery cable wiring. Well, it's getting us down to the nitty gritty stuff here. Well, that's not going to work. Should have known that. Remove this bolt here for the dipstick. Once I get this motor out, I'll go over how I measured my dipstick and cut it, because I used that aftermarket oil pan. Oops, that's an exhaust bolt. Wrong bolt. But anyways, you gotta have a different dipstick for the short pan, and I didn't get it with my kit, so I actually figured out how to mark and cut my factory dipstick down a little bit. And I got another factory dipstick laying around somewhere over here for that 5.3 engine, and we can compare them and look them over and all that stuff to see how I cut it down. But I just cut it and kind of strained it out and drilled a new hole in it, and works out pretty good. So I'll go ahead and get these header bolts out. I know some people like to actually see all this stuff done in real time. I see some videos where people just fast forward everything, but I think kind of how I'm gonna do it is I'll kind of get this side apart, record it, and then the other side I'll just take it apart off camera, because I mean it's pretty much the same thing. Threads don't look too happy on that bolt. These LS heads, they have a problem with breaking off in the head, and I think it's the driver's side head. I got a bolt I had to tried to easy out, but I ended up having to drill it and tap new threads in, oversized threads, and I might try to get a Healy coil and put it back to metric, but we'll have to see. I don't think it's the threads in the head. I think they're just rubbing on these headers. We'll find out in a minute. And that one looks fine. The last header kit that I got came with these studs and nuts, and I guess I could put them all studs and just use these kind of self-biting nuts, but I just kind of put two in there for a pilot to get the gasket and header and everything in there. So I generally take my oil extender off, because I have broke those before pulling these motors, and just pop that back on. Cooling line probably shouldn't have come off that easy, but looks like that clamp is trying to just get replaced. Knock sensors, which I don't even actually know if I utilize those anymore. I'm actually going to call the guy that does all the tuning and ask him if I even need to put those in this thing anymore. My steam vent caps I made, no, they don't leak, but they're definitely not pretty. I know they have factory ones or aftermarket ones, so I'll probably get some better ones. And then my Lock-R, I think Loc-R maybe, transmission dipstick for the 4L80E. That was kind of expensive. That was like $100 by itself, but just how it is, I guess. But anyways, I am going to get the other side kind of disassembled this far, and go from there. So that's what I'll be doing. Okay, I got the driver's side all disconnected there. The transmission bolts are 15 millimeter. I'm just using the factory bolts. But I guess if it was a clearance issue, I'd maybe use different bolts, or I'd cut the little, whatever you want to call these things here. I'd cut these things off, but I didn't have to on this, got plenty of room. But slowly coming along here. Oops. I had to cobble together a oil gauge. That's actually the factory sending unit. I drilled and tapped and put the mechanical brass adapter in there because I didn't have the crazy metric Chevy thread for that. So, and then this bolt right is 13 millimeter right there is for the ground wires. But not a whole lot left. I gotta grab a couple transmission bolts on the passenger side. I gotta unhook the ground strap down on the bottom of the motor and then work on the motor mounts. It's gonna be hard to see the motor mounts because of the exhaust in the way, but generally what I've been doing is I've just been taking every bolt loose on it. If I can get the bolts on the block, I take them completely out. I'll take the 2 center bolts that go down to the rubber mount out, and I'll take the 2 bolts on the bottom of the engine cross member out too. I'll just pretty much have them loose so they'll just crumble or fall apart in 3 or 4 pieces, but that's fine. It keeps everything going, and boy, these lights are really working out pretty good. You really see a lot better. I'm actually really happy I invested in those. So, all right, well, I am going to finish up transmission mounts on this side, or bolts on this side, and get a few more, a little bit more of the stuff kind of hung up out of the way or off the car, and then start working on some motor mounts. Well, I'm trying to also figure out how to keep the GoPro adjusted so you can actually see what I'm doing. So I apologize if it's not the best footage yet, but anyways, transmission mounts, you can get pretty much all of them right through the top here, and I'll do the other side also. Then you'll have to get the ones in the bottom, of course. But so I'll get all the header and everything loose on this side, and I'll pull, I might pull the spark plugs, I might not, I don't know. Then I can start loosening the motor mounts, and there's really not a whole lot left on top of this engine to pull the engine. Everything else is going to be on the bottom: torque converter, bottom transmission mounts, and that's really about it. So just thought I would show a little bit more progress. I'll leave all this stuff on there. I was thinking about pulling these up, but they're being kind of a bear cat, so I might leave them in for the time being. But I'll carry on. You saw the passenger side get pulled apart. Driver's side's pretty much the same, except that there's a lot more swearing and a lot more aggravation to get bolts. So shop lights are pretty good, but I still need to utilize a little light when I can. So I was in a hurry and I built this 3-inch exhaust, so I can't take my I didn't put any flanges, collectors down to actually separate this yet. So I can't really get my hand in there and go down there and get that 9/16 bolt. And there's 2 of them. See the other one hiding over there. But I can get all the motor mount bolts along the side to 3. There's 1 there and then 2 on the outside, and then I can get the bolts underneath the engine. already took the one off. It's really close, but we got that one there to take off. So I'll take those off. The 3 bolts around the motor mount, and then basically do the same thing on the driver's side. So that's kind of the process of getting the motor mounts out. And it's not because it's a real weird fit or nothing. It's just I like everything to just come out real super smooth. The oil pan, it's probably going to be pretty tough to see, but if I can even get the camera to get down in there, you can kind of see if I can get something here to show you. That black space right there, that little curve right there is the edge of the oil pan, and then that top part, the silver part there, is the bottom of the oil pan, and then the black part is the cross member. So I got like 2.5 inches of space between the oil pan sump and the cross member there to get it out. But I know it'll come out because I've done it a couple of times, and it's actually really not that hard. But so there's that. I'll get the 2 motor mounts out, unhooked, and then I guess it's just getting the car jacked up and getting everything out from underneath. So alright, so this is the driver's side motor mount. I already got the front bolt out. Just got to get these 2 rear bolts out, and kind of give you a better idea of that oil pan to the cross member. So I have that much room to get it separated from the transmission and clear the flex plate and all that stuff, but it'll be fine. And we got that lower transmission bolt on both sides, and transmission bottom cover here, and then the torque converter bolts, and that's pretty much it. Hook a chain to it and pluck it out of there. So just thought I'd show a little bit of stuff I got left, and we'll go from there. While I get my torque converter bolts out, I'm able to get my little 3/8 impact in there. And I definitely torqued or Loctited them, so but that makes life easier, and I'm able to turn this engine for the most part by just grabbing the torque converter with my hand and spinning it. I don't think this motor has low compression, but you never know. It's got a lot of miles on it. And I haven't treated it very nice with the supercharger, so you never know. That one's going to be stubborn, so. Alright, pretty easy. Torque converter's loose. The transmission mount, bolts are all out. Motor mounts are loose. I guess that's the sign that I need to actually pull the engine now. So I might let the car all the way to the ground. I can get the engine hoist on around the side of the wheels, but won't get the best setup for the engine engine hoist here in a minute, but yeah, if I had all my time without fiddling with the cameras and stuff, probably took me 30 minutes from where it was pulling the wiring off. So, you know, if a guy was set with all his tools and was ambitious enough, he could have this motor out in an hour probably by himself. It's really pretty easy. I mean, that's if you don't have a supercharger on it. Supercharger takes time, but if it was just a truck intake, probably about an hour to pull the motor. So, alright, well, I'm gonna get set up and get this motor pulled. Just thought I'd do a quick little update on this. It's actually the following day after I got all the torque converter bolts and got the motor ready to pull. So basically I just gotta get that ground wire off and then start pulling this engine. I'm sure there's a drain bolt somewhere on the motor to drain the antifreeze, but I guess I could go look on the other motors, but I'm kind of lazy, so I'm just going to pull it like I always do with antifreeze still in the block. And that's why I usually tape up the stuff rags or tape them, you know. I just kind of did both. We'll have an experiment, we'll see which one works better. Probably neither, but you never know. And then when I pull these motors, these bolts here are pretty short, but I actually have some longer ones, and I want to say they're actually spare 10mm bolts out of heads, but they're 3/4 of an inch longer than these, and they go pretty much all the way down the full length of the threads. And I'll just put one on that corner, one on this corner. And that's how I pull the motor. I've never had any problems doing that before, and I use the same bolts pretty much over and over. They're kind of bent, but they never damage or bend into this. So, but anyways, I'm going to pull that ground wire. I got the mechanical temperature gauge out of there, sensor out of there, and that's dripping into a bucket right now. And yeah, gonna pull that ground wire and we'll get her yanked out of there. Okay, so as far as the extracting goes, the dowel pins on the back of the motor are generally pretty well on the transmission, but actually didn't give me any fuss. It just kind of came unhooked from the transmission. Usually fights me kind of bad, but if you haven't already noticed, there's plenty of room to get this motor in and out through the top. And I know earlier I said that they come through the bottom of the engine. Well, I used to have an AMC technical manual, and that's what they always said you had to do, is pull everything out through the bottom. Yep, it's slow. Fan radiator cap thingy, I don't even know what you would call that. The reason I'm filming it like this is just to kind of show you that it is pretty much hands-free, other than you just gotta work the cherry picker or engine hoist, whichever you want to call it. But oh, well, we got it this high. So I just get these little plates, and that one's actually upside down, but to block off the oil passages. And let's see here, I think so on the back underneath this flywheel are a couple thresh plate sort of things, and there's one right back here that's bolted on, and you can kind of see it right there. My fingers touching it, but anyways, behind there is a little barbell looking little thing that blocks these oil passages here. And when I was having my oil problems, they all told me that that little barbell probably had moved and was just bypassing the oil pressure. But the reason I'm showing you this is because I painstakingly under this car pulled this port out here, and you can actually shine a light up into the engine and see a little barbell thing, and you can actually see if it's actually pushed back or however. But you know, it's probably something I should buy and just replace. They do make a nice aftermarket one, so I'm kind of thinking about that. It may not be a bad idea just to replace that, because if it does get stuck, you're yanking the motor out to do anything, and they're not pulling this heater block off there because it doesn't need to be on there. This car will go out there in the winter time. But there's the short oil pan. But yeah, I mean, really super easy to pull this motor, and it's actually really super easy to reinstall it. And there's the cross member. I did no modifications to the engine cross member at all. That a few people asking me. There's the driver's side hole pattern, and passenger side I didn't do anything to, but yeah, I mean, super simple, and no cutting into the tunnel or anything for the 4L80E. No actual cutting or anything to the car, so you know, hopefully this helps out a lot of you that maybe want to try to do an LS or maybe even a Ford or a Hemi. They're probably all roughly the same size. You know, you can get one if you want to make yourself motor mounts. You can get one in here and probably just as well put an LS and not have to do any real super hard modifications, and you know, have a really sweet updated fuel injected, or you know, put the carburetor or setup on them, and you know, just have something a little bit more updated, something easier to get parts for and a little cheaper to get parts for. And you know, you can do all that without tearing up the car too much, because I mean, if I wanted, as I've said before, I guess I could put an AMC motor right back into this and you know, be back to an AMC. But I really enjoy my LS motor, and I really like my supercharger. So, but well, my phone's making noises, so I'm gonna check that, and we're gonna call this the end of part 3 on pulling the engine. And yeah, it went really easy, and I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I hope it motivates a few other people to give it a try. Thanks for watching.